Hey, welcome back to Spain. It's January 3rd, 1821, in this strange world of Spain. Well, this is what they would classically call an after action report. I've just come to the final screen, and I just wanted to summarize some quick data on this run through of Spain. I did something late in the game, just it started out to be out of curiosity, but it wound up being just a big cheat by me. And I'll get into that in just a second. You can see we ended 30, 30, 29 in our text, 30 admin, 30 diplo, and 29 military. And we were pretty much always behind something in tech. I seldom, in early mid-game, I got ahead on admin, and especially military. But late in the game, as various buildings and as options became available, I did not stay at the forefront of any technology. But we were good. We kept a lifelong partnership with. Man, I wish I could. I don't want to quit. I'm afraid if I quit. Let me just go from this screen and then I'll hit the quit button and see what happens. We kept up our lifelong alliance with Portugal, strong relations. We kept up a royal marriage, basically throughout from start to finish, and that wound up, although we were never able to take over Portugal or anything like that, diplo annex or vassalize. They were far too large to vassal or whatever. We never went to war with Portugal, although Portugal was at war with us a few times defensively when they were allied, I believe, with France, perhaps England, or especially with France. And so we were in war a few times, but those were just bubbles in a long-term great relationship between Spain and Portugal. We blobbed out and took over basically most of Europe. And at the end there, after a long period of peace, I decided I was going to just go to war with Austria again, just to finish out and see how much more of Austria I could carve out before the end. We have just diplo annexed Commonwealth, and that just finished. I was about to diplo annex other vassals. I had just sent Brunswick. I had just achieved vassalization of Brunswick when we hit the end time limit. We have just finally finished this war with Austria. You can see down here below 97% war score in our final war with Austria. They were allied with Polotsk, Lithuania, Holstein, and Brunswick, and we had no problem. We and our allies had no problem with those. We ended up, we took the Commonwealth areas and we turned them into HRE provinces and got a little HRE power and began to play a little HRE diplomacy game there at the end. And we were at 100 Pope points and ready and able to do anything we needed to with our Pope points, although towards the end we were able to keep our stability at +3 almost entirely through the last few hundred years. Prestige was always good and legitimacy was always good. I think I played on easy mode, although I think I played this on easy mode, but right now I can't tell you. I know I didn't play on normal or Iron Man mode. It was either easy or normal mode. I'm not sure which. I just started this just to get back into it, not as any kind of a show about how great I am at this, because I'm not. I really suck at this game, and this was really the first time I just had so much fun with it. Earlier playthroughs have been kind of a tedious chore, but this was just a lot of fun for me. Just take you through the ideas we went through briefly. Paradox has a great, really enjoyable way of customizing and uniquifying your experience when you play EU4. As you tech up in admin technology, you unlock the ability to go after a different idea, a different national idea. And these are mostly common between various nations, but some wind up being, there are some ideas that are more or less unique to each nation. And so the sequence I went after these was, first I went after economic ideas, and that's that slowed us down in admin tech, because that's an admin idea, and there are 7 ideas, and they each take, I don't know, like 300 points or something to run through and get the idea, each particular idea. So we took economic ideas. Many people would take colonization or expansion, and as you see, I never took colonization. I only took mid game. I took expansion, but first I focused on economics, getting our tax base up, and you can see at the end we just had ridiculous tax and production. That's what I focused on. My trade game here was very, very weak, very, very weak, and that's something I think I'm going to focus on next time. Ideally, I'd love to play a Diplo vassal and Diplo economic trade game. That's what I would try to play next. So we focused first on economic ideas to get our economy up and running. And man, I'm here to tell you, once that economy was strongly positive, I just kept working the. I didn't build all that many troops. I built a bunch of troops to begin with, and then as I would vassal and annex other states, other nations, I would get their troops and just continue using. In fact, in the late game, I discovered I have a lot of mercenaries from the provinces, from the minor nation states that I had annexed, and hadn't even got to the point of cleaning up those troops. It's ridiculous manpower, 957 out of 1,065. We had 500,000 infantry, 176,000 cavalry, and 250,000 artillery at the end. We had 531 ships out of a total of 1214 available. We were far and away lagging behind Portugal in light ships. Portugal had hundreds and hundreds of light ships by the end of the game, 300, 600, somewhere in that range. Portugal also had a lot of heavy ships, and I kind of, except for the occasional big bruiser battle, heavy ships aren't all that useful here in this game. Galleys are very useful up in the Mediterranean and around Denmark in the shallow water areas, and then transports. You got to have transports to ferry your troops from place to place. So we ended up with the largest army by far. We had about 3 times the size of the Ottoman army, and we had 4 major wars with Austria, 1 major war with the Ottomans, and those were probably the big world wars. There were some early game wars we had with France, England. They wound up being pretty darn easy, I have to say. But the Austrian wars were always tough, especially the first one especially. Second largest navy behind Portugal, far and away the most provinces of anybody. Highest province value, highest income, because I just kept building a lot of buildings. And then second highest trade income behind Portugal. Portugal was just rocking the trade. So economic ideas was first. Humanist ideas, because I'm a bleeding heart liberal hippie tree hugger. Humanist ideas came second, because I'm not the hugest fan of the religious aspect of the game, but it's fun to play the Pope game, the Pope points, and so I took humanist ideas early. For one thing, it gives you there's an idea here that gives you cheaper technology, and you have that cheaper technology. It's a modifier, and you have it throughout the game. That's another thing I love about this game, is that there are tiny little, like here under legitimacy, you see number of royal marriages plus 0.90. So it's an annual we ended up with 9 royal marriages, but each one's worth a tenth of a point, and so it's these tiny little baby step modifiers that end up making big differences in this game, and I completely love that game ethos, that aesthetic of game design. Tiny little modifiers just accumulate so much value over the course of the game. I really like it a ton. Really, really like it a ton. Little things like building a glorious monument, which is a one-time thing, +1 annual prestige, which, to begin with, it just fights the decay of the prestige. But by the end of the game, once I've accumulated all these things, my prestige actually regenerated. So power projection was something that happened very late. Basically just slapping around Austria, and then England, and then France, and then later the Ottomans. That kept the power projection up. But early in the game, this seldom went above about 5 because I played a very peaceful early game. And I think I may go back and try that. I found it very fun to play a peaceful early game, relying on marriage and dynastic effects as Spain and Diplo annexing. That was just a lot of fun for me. It's kind of like growing, kind of like in Civ 4 when you would grow by culture. You would absorb other territory by culture. I like that, man. The Diplo game. Stability. I will try different things with stability next time, but this time around, early in the game, I spent way too many admin points. I think in the first 20 years I kept overspending admin to get this up to high as possible, to +3, +2, +3. Later in the game I realized that +2 wasn't so bad. Even +1 I didn't panic too much because I had a really strong Pope game, and I knew that in some number of years I'd have enough Pope points to convert that into +1 stability, so I was able to keep those positive modifiers pretty much throughout. Manpower was ridiculous, just a million man army here. Income ridiculous, and it got to the point that I had so much bank I couldn't even spend it all. So that's pretty nice. I played some subsidies game and enjoyed that. So the third idea I unlocked was maritime, and I did it more out of a sense of compulsion. There were some things, some naval power modifiers I was able to unlock by going maritime, and that was important early. I really had mixed feelings about spending so much admin power, or this was actually a Diplo power. Let's see, that was admin, this was Diplo power, and Diplo power is really important when it comes to peace agreements. And so, oh my goodness, look at my 17 out of 9 diplomatic. When I became the HRE, I just went nuts with the diplomatic relations. It was rough. So maritime, it wound up being very helpful later in the game because I got my butt kicked a few times early in the game. Kind of got caught by surprise and learned I had to group my ships together and whatnot because quantity usually would beat quantity or quality in a naval battle. Finally, I took the expansion idea to get the colonist game going, and Portugal was already way out of the gate with the colonist game, but I still had a lot of fun with the colonization. Fifth, diplomatic ideas to make the annexing and vassaling and coring and all that much faster. Aristocratic ideas. This was basically it was more or less an army military type play. All three of these last ones were military type plays because I kept having plenty of military points, kept having great military leaders. The current leader has a 0 military skill, but he's the only one. Everybody else was just fantastic. And when they weren't, I had plenty of money by mid-game, I had plenty of money to keep the best advisors I could possibly find. So went aristocratic, defensive, and then offensive. Basically, late game, all military tech. Early game, all admin. Middle game, Diplo and admin. So I would recommend starting out differently. I would probably choose a military tech to begin with. I'm not sure. Just whatever. I'd probably play to my leader. Whatever strength he had, I would go with. I'd probably choose something from that. If I had a great military leader, I'd probably pick one of the military ideas to start with, because you're going to be doing a lot of warring. This is a war game. It's a tabletop Europe war game, and you do a lot of battling in the game, and so that's very important. Man, 286 provinces, no overextension, great religious unity. The overextension, I learned middle to late of the game to start at the end of wars. Instead of demanding provinces for myself, I would have the enemy cede provinces to my vassals and to surrounding nations, and that helped both my vassals and the surrounding nations to. It really helps the Diplo game, but it hits them with the overextension and the aggressive expansion, and it doesn't charge me with anything. So that was a learning experience. The thing. Okay, so I discovered something late in the process, and I cheated like a sorry old SOB, and what I discovered was it's really easy to bring up the debug window, and in the debug window there are 3-letter commands that will give you 999 Diplo power, 999 military, and 999 admin. And I think it was World War III with Austria. I discovered that there were settlements that I wanted, but I didn't have enough Diplo power, and I discovered I was looking around, and I was to the point of looking at how I could edit the save file to just give myself a little bit of extra Diplo power to get the settlement I wanted. And that's when I discovered the debug window, and it's just really easy to give yourself basically unlimited admin, Diplo, and military power. And I did do that a few times, and I'll show you here on the big board what it resulted in. But yeah, I kind of felt like towards the end, I wasn't, even though I was playing the game for fun, towards the end, I kind of had mixed feelings about it. I enjoyed seeing the outcome, but after it was over, I was like, I'd sleep on it, and I'd be like, that just didn't sit right with me. So I think next time I'll just simply play Iron Man mode, because I think they have the debug window turn off in Iron Man mode. So that will fix that problem. Well, let's see what happens if I quit. Can I go back to the window? Quit. Oh, what? Hot chocolate. Kind of addictive. 7-Eleven hot cocoa. I stop just about every day and get some. By the way, I'm using 2 mods here. I'm using red UI that substitutes the blue data screen, the blue windows with red. And I'm using, here we go, autosave. Happened when I went to war with the Ottomans, and I'll show you right here. I was not able to. Oops. Okay, map mode. Let's open map mode buttons, and let's go W, and let's go back. There we go. When I went to war with the Ottomans, although it was a long war. It was a very long. We sieged every single Ottoman province, and won and destroyed the entire Ottoman army and navy. And the Ottomans were allied with Tunis, and you can see that Tunis is down to 1 province. Well, and they don't like me too much. Well, they never did, but. In the settlement with the Ottomans, I could not get for myself, I could not get for Spain any Ottoman territory. And what I wanted was, basically to get the Ionian Peninsula for Spain, convert that into HRE provinces, and then play some HRE game. I couldn't do that. The best I could do was force the Ottomans to spit out various states. And so we made them spit out Serbia, Bosnia, Albania, Greece, and Bulgaria. We made them cede this province, Kaffa, to Crimea. We made them spit out Armenia. We made them spit out Kayunlu. We made them spit out... Oh, Syria was down to a one-province minor. They had been very friendly with us all game. Even though they were landlocked, they were away from the Mediterranean, they were down to just this one province, I think it was Rabat. And I thought it was pretty cool to just spit this out, make the Ottomans spit out all these provinces to Syria. I had some thoughts that I might could vassalize Syria, but that didn't happen. The religious difference was too great. But I just enjoyed playing that little bit of the game. I wanted to make them spit out Persia, but I just didn't have... I couldn't do everything that I wanted to do, so I couldn't have them spit out Persia. There's also something up here. I made them give something to... I don't know what I made them give. I may have made them give out some provinces to the Timurids. I don't think I did, but anyway, I played some game up here. Mostly just my main goal was Greece and the Ionian Peninsula, and I thought correctly, as it turned out, that by spitting out these minor states, I could then come back and get friendly with them and vassalize them. And I was, in fact, able to vassal Serbia. Yeah, Serbia, Albania, and Greece. Those three ended up, within a few years, they became my vassals. So that worked out well. Bosnia was always aggro with me. Let's see, border friction, they want my provinces. Annexed a member of the Holy Roman Empire. Man, they were playing some haterade game on me, so I couldn't get Bosnia. Primarily because, let's see, click on Bosnia. Is this the heat map? Yeah. Click on Bosnia, and they don't like Serbia, and they don't like Bulgaria. Click on Serbia. Well, actually, they must have normalized relations because they really didn't like each other for a very long time. Before Serbia became my vassal, these two were arch enemies. Yeah. Bulgaria now looks like Bosnia's worst enemy. Yeah. So I love this heat map, man. I played late in the game after the Hansa forced Austria to spit out Hungary. I played a lot of Hungary love here, and royal marriage, alliance guaranteed, and military access, and just kept relations up with Hungary so that when we fought the Ottomans, Hungary would come in. And then later, in the late game, when we fought Austria, the Hungarians, the fighting Hungarians came in. This was the only province of, you see our war score is 98, the only province we didn't take was Danzig, and I was just waiting for that. Oh man, that was it. What? That's at minus 35? That was it. What? Oh, it's at plus 42. I'm looking at... What am I looking at? Is somebody... What's being sieged? It's minus 30. Maybe it just needs to tick one time to catch... Yeah, I think that's what it is. It just needs to tick to catch up. But yeah, this was just about done. In fact, you know what? Here, let's do this. Right? And let's do assault. And we'll tick one day. Ah, that didn't do it. That didn't do it. Okay. Austria, get out of here, Holstein, and Brunswick. So anyway, I was just waiting for that to finish up and then force my terms of agreement on Austria. As you can see, Austria is down to a shadow of its former self, and I was looking to just carve it up into tiny pieces and maybe feed some pieces to Hungary, feed some pieces to Pomerania, who ended up being a great late game ally, and maybe even feed some pieces to my vassals, Brandenburg and Ulm here. Brunswick, I was wanting to take as a vassal during the war, and I finally had the war score, and they agreed. They agreed to. Okay, it looks like they haven't accepted the agreement here, but they agreed to become our vassal, and I was looking to do the same thing with Holstein up here. However, Holstein, I had a little bit of a problem figuring out how to get troops over to here, and it took me a while, so I was behind on the sieges of getting these troops here, and so those sieges hadn't finished when the clock finished up. I was going to vassalize, force vassal Holstein as well as Brunswick, and then take some of the Austrian provinces and leave Austria with probably a core around Wien, Salzburg, and down in here, but Ostmarsch, Bohemia, probably leave them that, and then just kind of carve off the outer pieces for other states, other nations. Well, anyway, there you have it. We ended up with a mess load of vassals. Let's see how many vassals we ended up with. This was kind of ridiculous. The vassal game was kind of ridiculous, kind of fun. And I kept playing this tariff decrease game. I would spend admin when I had it to decrease tariffs to keep the colonies simmering, to keep them from, once they would get to 50%, they could declare independence. Anywhere between 50 and 100%, they would declare independence. So, I wanted to keep them. And so Castilian West Indies, New Granada, Florida, Castilian La Plata, Breton Canada, Castilian Brazil, and Castilian Louisiana were our colonial possessions. A lot of fun for a guy who joined the colony game late, But we just kept after it, slow and steady. So Albania became a vassal. Greece became a vassal. Serbia was a vassal. These were all three late-game vassals after the Ottoman War. Danzig was a late-game vassal after World War III, I think, with Austria, where we forced Austria to kick out Danzig as a sovereign state. France became a late-game vassal after we took Ile-de-France, and our vassals and allies just basically kicked their butts all over the world. So we took France's. In fact, I kept trying very hard to play the. I tried to annex France, but just never could get the score up. It was very hard for me to vassal France, but it was very satisfying when I finally did. Aachen and Anhalt were former Austrian vassals, and they still hate me, as you can see. And I think I just gave Anhalt, what do you call it? Holy Roman Emperor grace. I bestowed grace on one of these guys, and anyway, but they really hold it against me that I annexed vassals, and especially that I annexed a member of the HRE. Brandenburg was a late game war vassal acquisition, as was Aachen and Anhalt. They were war vassals. Switzerland made the mistake of siding against me, and they were not exactly a late game vassal. They were a mid game vassal, but I never could get their opinion up high enough to diplo-annex. Ulm was a mid game vassal, and it was the oldest vassal that I was never able to diplo-annex. And as you can see, they completely hate me because of annexed vassal minus 191. Annexed member of the HRE minus 94. So you can see, I did everything I could to get my opinion of them up, but the timing was always wrong. And the Papal States were one of my very early game vassals. and when I took basically the Italian peninsula, and as you recall, I had to spit them out because because didn't want all the hate from around the Catholic free world. So, but the Papal State, of course, I could never diplo-annex, and so they were, we just kept them on good terms with us, and they were always a staunch ally and a great supporter. You can see these guys had, pretty darn good military. Castilian West Indies ended up with 89, and an army of 89. Florida 61, New Granada 55. These guys weren't chopped liver when it came to supporting me in war. And man, if it weren't for the relation penalty, the overextension of diplomatic relations, man, I would have just kept vassalating everything in sight. So just really enjoyed playing the vassal game. What else? Military. Really enjoyed how we teched up through the military, and how it gave you options for new units, and how it automatically converted to new units. It converts to new military or infantry type units, land units, but the naval units did not auto update. And what basically happened in the naval game was that as technology would get better, and as these units would go into war, the older units would tend to be would attrition faster than the new units, and so it's almost sort of a natural process of attritioning the old units and replacing them with the new units. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I just enjoyed going through it. It took me a long time to discover Army tradition and naval tradition and what exactly they meant, how I got them, and how they related to the kinds of leaders I could get. I was really baffled early on that Austria had such great leaders. My first war, I was like, man, how do they have all these fantastic leaders? Well, it comes from fighting and losing a lot, fighting a lot and losing a lot, and that's how you get the great leaders. I think that winning battles should give a little bit more tradition, but losing battles, the disparity is a little bit too much. But I think it's there to keep the defeated states from being steamrollered quite so easily. I think it's a damper effect is what's going on. Like if you win a battle, you'll get an army tradition of plus 0.1. If you lose a battle, you get an army tradition of plus 5.0 or something like that. And so I think it's just a way to damp that pendulum and keep things from going raging out of control. I just wish I would get a little bit more tradition for winning a battle, because it just kind of makes a little bit more sense. So got involved in the 4 phases or the 3 phases, 2 phases really of battle: fire and shock, and then siege, and then maneuver, and then siege. Maneuver, nullifies crossing a river or a mountain or whatever penalties depending on the relative maneuver value of the general leading the troops. And then siege, a leader with great 2 siege can make a siege go much quicker. And if war exhaustion is a problem, that's very, very helpful. I never did turn a leader into a general. That's not a game that I played. The religion game, we were in great good with the Pope. We had lots of cardinals. I mean, Spain, we kept Defender of the Faith really through probably 2/3 of the game, although it wasn't a very high priority. It did give us nice little bonuses here and there. It did kind of offset some technology costs, but yeah. And we would, when we had missionaries, we would use them. I really enjoyed getting these heretics and heathens tolerance modifiers up to, non-negative numbers. That was good. Yeah, I had to use some military power a few times to handle rebels. Never really had to reduce war exhaustion. I think I did one time. Used some admin power or something to reduce. The missions and decisions, let's see, policies. Really enjoyed these extra policies that you could enact. They all come with a little bit of cost, and so you have to be careful about how you enact them. Kind of enjoyed the missions, but they were kind of odd and derpy. They often didn't really fit with any reasonable plan that I had, and so I would accept a mission and then I would cancel it, and then 1 year later you could get another mission, another set of missions to choose from. Here's our ideas, and we had our Spanish ideas came as bonuses. I think these are Spanish ideas up here, and they come as bonuses to finishing out an entire tree. Like the economic tree gave the Reconquista bonus. I think I'm saying this right. 4, 5, 6, 7, something like that. Anyway, as you worked through these ideas, you accumulated more and more of these Spanish ideas. So it's pretty cool. Heavy ship combat ability plus 10%. Spanish traditions gave us +1 mercenary, plus 15% army morale, which is huge, and plus 25 settler increase. So I don't know, 25 out of what? I don't know. But those were the ideas. Here's the technology screen. Oh, you can see we could have chosen new text, and really just enjoyed this whole setup, this whole format here. Never did fully understand trade, and played a really lousy trade game, so only ever embargoed one other nation, and that was Austria, and it just happened in this last war, World War IV. And anyway, just that's a really weak part of my game, and I need to improve it. Economy, we were wealthy, and so I just routinely would keep the army maintenance slider at the maximum in case somebody declared war or rebellions erupted or something. I had a few situations where I forgot that this was at the minimum and got hurt badly. I lost some battles where I thought I should have easily just completely annihilated the other army, and instead I lost, and I was like, what? And then I realized this was all the way down. And so, it takes a few months. If army maintenance is at the minimum, it takes a few months for it to get up to for the army morale to get up to the maximum. And so you just, if you're here in Tyrol and Austria declares war on you from over here, you got to move this army back and get it out of the war for a few months before you bring it in. I mean, that's just how it has to happen. Okay, diplomacy. Just we always had good. This guy was probably one of our weakest. 230, pretty weak ruler. The next guy, Luis de Trastamara, 623, 11 points total, not bad. Really like the admin focus there. Admin and Diplo, far more important than military, in my opinion, from what I saw. We had great diplomatic reputation throughout as Spain, and great improved relations skills. So ended up in constitutional monarchy. I thought about going to administrative monarchy or absolute monarchy, but I stayed here at constitutional because I really enjoyed the monthly autonomy change. This was about the best I could get in any form of government that I could get into. A minus 0.15 monthly autonomy change, which is 12, that's 151 1.80 per year, 1.80 per year. And so if a province has a 50 autonomy, then in 40 years or so, 35 or 40 years, this alone will reduce it to 0. And so it's one of those very small things, very powerful, and helped a lot. Never really had an issue too much with manpower or recovery speed because our armies were just ridiculously large. So just had a fun time, and I know I won't get too many viewers of this, but I just really just wanted to post it out here and document it, maybe for myself for the future. Come back and listen to things as long as it stays around on YouTube. So you can see the guys we're at war with, Austria, Brunswick, and Holstein, hate us. I tried very hard to set up Holstein as I tried to royal marriage them. I looked at making an alliance with them. They broke the alliance. I proclaimed a guarantee of them, and they just basically didn't like us, and I could not play a Diplo game with them, and so I was going to, if I had time, I was going to take them by force along with Brunswick, and like I said, cut Austria down to size. Polotsk made the mistake of choosing the wrong battle. I had a royal marriage with them at one point and an alliance before World War III, and they chose the wrong side, and so I just recently canceled the royal marriage and took the Diplo penalty with them for doing that. Just a lot of fun. Anything else to talk about? Anyway, I just don't know what I would do different. I didn't know we had rebels. Oh, we don't. Scotland does. Scotland. It was a long game, and Scotland could have been our buddy, but no, they never were. They got into a couple of personal unions under Sweden, and plus they got into the colonial game and had their own colonial possessions, and so that never happened. We could have gotten into a Norway game, and we really didn't. We who was it? Somebody who was the war leader forced Norway to cede us these. I would never have asked for these territories, but they were given to us in one of the wars we were in. I don't think I asked for them. Sweden kind of ran hot and cold with Sweden. Denmark finally popped up a few more times. Kurland, we forced Lithuania. When we peaced out in World War IV, this war that's still going on, when we peaced out with Lithuania, we forced them to give up a couple of, let's see, what did we force them? We forced them to spit out Kurland as a sovereign state. We forced them to give a province to, I believe, to Pomerania. Polotsk, we made Polotsk give up this province to Pomerania, and this went to Muscovy, and this went to this went to Novgorod, and this went to Muscovy. So we forced Polotsk to spit out. This went to Kiev, and Ruthenia got spit out as a sovereign state. So we kind of trimmed Polotsk down by trimming out some of that. And also, we forced them to give a couple of provinces to Lithuania, which we had just peaced out with Lithuania. Was at war, 11. But we returned to, look at that, plus 102. And we've only improved relations by 40. That's Lithuania, even though we just peaced out, we just sieged their entire nation, peaced out with them. And in the subsequent peace with Polotsk, we forced Polotsk to give up a couple of territories. And they would even, if we had more time, they would even consider a vassal deal. So that'd be pretty cool, man. All right, well, I'm kind of blissed out. I just really enjoyed this. Spain, man. Welcome to Spain. the war with the Ottomans, I don't know if I finished talking about it, but we couldn't get any of the Ottomans' cores for ourselves, provinces for ourselves in the peace. That deal was grayed out. When we were at war with the Ottomans, this was grayed out like that, like the return corps. The Cede provinces was grayed out, even though we had sieged and successfully sieged the entire Ottoman nation. So I had no options to demand provinces from the Ottomans. And so I took it out on Tunisia. We basically forced Tunis to give up everything to us and a couple of provinces to Portugal. Everything except the capital of Tunis. And that's where I went doggone wild and gave myself basically maximum diplo power to get to get what I wanted there. Well, don't know what my European friends would think about this map. Probably not too much. Some of my daughter's friends in Barcelona would probably like it quite a lot, but there is no Spain per se. Some of these would probably be Barcelonian states, and some of these would probably be, just different. They would ally differently. So I don't know that a unified Spain would even be possible, throughout Europe. But anyway, just a lot of fun painting the map, and I'll do this again another time. And thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.